Well, good evening, my friends. TJ here again. Some of y'all are probably tired of seeing my ugly mug, but it's been laid on my heart to do these videos, and I'm just trying to be obedient. So, if you're tired of seeing it, just keep on scrolling. You won't hurt my feelings. This evening I wanted to discuss TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, and how I believe that at this point TDS is directly tied to ZDS, Zionist Derangement Syndrome. And just wanted to point out how inconsistent Trump has been, how dishonest he's been, and what terrible choices and decisions he's made during his first and second term so far. Trump derangement syndrome is what the Trump supporters call, or they say that any of Trump's detractors have Trump derangement syndrome. But that syndrome actually goes both ways. There are those that had Trump derangement syndrome, the ones that believed in the Russia collusion story and all those, most of the people from the left that were just scared to death about Trump based on unfactual claims. But TDS goes the other way too, where for these people, it doesn't matter what Trump does. They are loyal to him. Even if he goes against what he said a few months ago, they remain loyal and they defend him no matter what. And that's just as deranged as hating him no matter what. So I just want to point that out, that the TDS that I'm talking about is in this case, the derangement that people have about Trump that makes them support him no matter what he does. So I'm just going to point out some things that Trump either broke his promises about or just completely made terrible decisions about. If you remember back in 2016 when he was campaigning against Hillary, he said that if he was president, she would be locked up. And that never happened. That was one of his first big campaign promises that he didn't follow through with. One of his first big mistakes that he made was during the last year of his first term, when he allowed Anthony Fauci to get behind a microphone and work this whole country and help work the whole world into a complete and utter pandemic. Like he did it with his mouth. He just created chaos because people trusted him. People believed the information and advice that Anthony Fauci was putting out. And many of us saw that it was complete and utter bullshit almost right away, within that first 2 weeks. And Trump should have known that too. If he's the president, he should have the best information, and so he should have known immediately. And I believe he did know immediately. But he allowed Fauci to continue to put out directives that basically shut down our country for months, and some states for longer than others. And all that came from Fauci. Trump could have taken that microphone from him and fired him anytime he wanted to, but he didn't. And then during that same period, Trump contributed in a huge way to inflation by passing the CARES Act, which was the bill that he passed where people got like $1,200 checks. But the vast majority of that money actually went to the big corporations, and it was just loaded with pork for all his buddies in the huge corporations and the banks. Had to bail those guys out. So all the inflation that we saw during the Biden years, it was actually mostly caused by Trump. And I'm not saying that Biden was a good president at all. Terrible. Horrible. No better than Trump. Yeah. He did not. You remember, he also promised that he was going to make Mexico pay for the border wall that he was going to build. The border wall never got finished, and what did get done, we paid for it. Mexico never paid for anything. Of course, some of us knew that he could never make Mexico pay for a border wall. But his loyal followers believed that, and they used it to, they regurgitated it during that period of time when he was making those promises, and they used it as a way to try to sway people's opinion. And then one of the last things he did during his first term was Operation Warp Speed, was the vaccines. And it's weird how almost everyone I talk to that is a Trump supporter is anti-COVID vaccine. Even the ones that got at least one dose of it will tell you that they don't think that it was effective, they don't think it worked, or they think that... I've talked to a lot of people who were either injured by it or know someone who was injured by it or died from it, died under mysterious causes after they got it. I know people who were paralyzed, people who had heart attacks, people who had pulmonary lung issues. And I think that was one of the whole COVID thing with the vaccine and Fauci and the CARES Act, all that wrapped together was just one of the worst things that any president has allowed to happen. And he allowed it to happen. So that wraps up the first term. And at that point, if y'all remember, right after Biden won, it looked like Trump was out of the picture, and everyone was talking about Ron DeSantis being the front runner for president, because Trump was pretty much out of the... Nobody was even thinking that he was going to run again. And then all the lawfare started, where they started, they raided Mar-a-Lago and all this kind of stuff. And I completely believe, and I believed at the time, that it was all theater. They were using the justice system and all these bogus charges to ramp up support for him again. Just like I feel like they did that the first time. The media talked about him so much, and it was in a negative light. And the people were so anti-media that it made them like Trump because the media hated Trump. And usually if the media doesn't want I saw how they really treat somebody who is a true threat to the status quo, and that was Ron Paul. And they did not talk about him all the time like they did with Trump. They ignored him. And if they didn't want Trump, they should have ignored him, but they did want him. And they made you like him because you believed that he was the hero against the bad guys. They made you believe that. They created the illusion. And they did it again after his first term, because we counted him out. Everybody was nobody was on the Trump train anymore. There may have been a few people, but the vast majority weren't. People were talking about DeSantis being the nominee, and then the lawfare starts, and all of a sudden he is in the running again. And of course, then what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania just sealed the deal for him. I believe that was all a WWE act. Hopefully I'll make a video about that one of these days, going into the details on that and why I believe that. You have to remember, he did come from WWE. He was a reality TV star. He's no stranger to theatrics of that kind. And it's honestly, it's the only scenario that makes any sense at all about that deal. So we'll move on. So we get into, he wins in 2024. Some of the first things that he does is the Gulf of America, which maybe somebody out there was asking for him to do that, but I don't recall ever seeing anything about the Gulf of America or the people wanting the Gulf of Mexico to be changed to the Gulf of America. I feel like it was just an empty gesture. It does nothing to improve our lives. It does nothing to make this country any better. And really all it does is cause animosity from Mexico and the people of Mexico. And I just thought it was petty and stupid. He started talking about taking over Greenland and even Canada, which again, nobody that was supporting him was talking about taking over Greenland or Canada. So I don't know where that came from. I feel like it was just, I do feel like he is a bit of more of an imperialist than I was hoping that he would be. But those are things he did that he never said he would do. Then we get to the tariffs, which he did talk about tariffs during his campaign, and I always thought that the idea of tariffs was terrible. Let me explain for those that don't understand the economics of it. I know it sounds like a tariff is a good thing because you're putting a tax on a foreign company. But what you have to understand is that when we put a tax on a foreign company, the American consumer is buying the products that we're putting from the company that we're putting that tax on. So just imagine put yourself in the shoes of a foreign business owner that is, your customers are in the United States and you want to keep on selling and making the same profits that you were. So what do you do if the United States puts a tariff on you? You just roll that cost into the cost of your product. So at the end of the day, folks, it's the customer of that foreign company, which is the American consumer, who's picking up the bill for that tariff. So all that a tariff is another tax on us. And for any of us to support it as a tax on some foreign country and pretend like that money's going to actually come out of their pockets, you're just ignorant of economics, and you need to just read some books on economics. You're not dumb, you're not stupid, you're just ignorant of that subject, and you need to educate yourself on it, because what you're doing is you're kicking yourself in the butt. Tariffs are a tax on the American consumer at the end of the day. So, another terrible thing that he's done. Then we roll around to trying to get this Epstein list out, and he comes out one day and says, oh, he's mad, he's frustrated, he wants to know why we're still talking about this Democratic hoax, is what he called it. And he said he didn't even need the support of the people that thought it was still important. If you wanted to keep talking about this, he doesn't even want your support. And I thought that day, well, he's done. Nobody's going to keep supporting him after that. But, boy, some of y'all are real loyal. You will take all kinds of abuse from this guy. You will just let him gaslight you, and you will let him turn you into something that you were not just a year ago. He will have you supporting policies that you did not support a year ago. And it has been absolutely mind-blowing to see that level of derangement. And after that, I thought, that's going to wake him up. That's going to let him know that he just really he's not an honest person, and he does not care about justice. He doesn't care. He's not a good person. If he's calling this Epstein list a hoax, and when we have to remember, when we talk about the Epstein list, this is documented evidence of the biggest pedophile and blackmail ring in the history of the world. And what's really terrible about that is that some of the most upstanding and moral people that I know in my community are not taking a stand on this issue, and they are just continuing to back Trump. That's what really blows my mind, is that I know that these people are moral people, but somehow their love for this man has allowed them to totally overlook this huge glaring issue and just keep going and supporting him. Even when he tells them, just gaslights them and tells them flat out he doesn't even want their support if they think that that's an important issue. Just blows my mind. It's sad, really sad. He has dropped bombs on a total of 10 countries and 7 just in his second term. And he promised multiple times to be a peace president. He said that if you wanted to have endless wars, you vote for Kamala. But if you wanted to have peace and no new wars, you vote for him. But he has bombed 7 countries he started multiple new conflicts: Venezuela and Iran, Nigeria. Um, he's dropped like over 600 bombs just during his second term so far, which is even more than what Biden did during his four terms. Just insane. And both of those two major conflicts that were going on when he ran for office that he promised he would end, both of those conflicts are still going on. Russia and Ukraine is still raging over there. And although there's a supposed ceasefire between Israel, as Lindsey Graham calls it, between Israel and Gaza, that is not a ceasefire. That's what we call an Israeli ceasefire. And that's when the other side stops firing and the Zio state continues to fire. And they've killed a lot of people since the ceasefire. A lot of civilians. More civilians. I think when all this shakes out, we're going to find out that they killed a lot more than what was reported by anyone so far. And so the reason I think that these people are deranged, and they are deranged, it's not that I think they are deranged, obviously, to keep supporting this after all this. It is, I compare it to a domestic abuse situation where a woman stays with a man who is beating the crap out of her, and she just can't leave him because she loves him. And she had all these hopes for him, and she thinks he'll change. But he doesn't. He keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and gaslighting her, and just making her look like a fool because she is a fool, because she stays and she thinks that he's going to stop, and she thinks he's going to change, and she thinks things are going to get better, and they don't. They only get worse. Oh, except that in this situation, it's getting worse for even those of us that can see it and the ones that want to leave. And the reason why I think that this TDS is directly tied to the ZDS, the Zionist derangement syndrome, I just want to point out a few things about Trump that are very interesting to me. First thing I want to point out is that he was very happy when his daughter, Ivanka, converted to Judaism. And I do not know of one Christian person, one actual Christian, who would be happy that one of their children converted to Judaism. Because by converting to Judaism, Ivanka is denying that Christ is the Messiah. And I don't know of one Christian parent that would be happy that their child is now denying Christ as the Messiah. Think about that, folks. If you're a Christian and you're a Trump supporter, think about the fact that he was happy about his daughter converting to Judaism. Another thing is when he was up on a stage with conservative talk show host Mark Levin, and Mark Levin had his hand around Trump's neck, hanging on to it real tight, and he claimed that Trump was the first Jewish president. And Trump said, it's true. Think about that, folks, because Trump has said in the past that he's a Christian, although I never did believe it. God's word says that we shall know them by their fruits. And I have never seen any fruit produced from Trump that would tell me that he was a Christian man. Never. But he says right then that it's true that he's the first Jewish president. He also brags very openly about his biggest donors, like Miriam Adelson, loving the Zio state more than she loves the U.S. Very troubling. Should trouble all of us when a big donor like that he gives so much attention to, is more loyal to a foreign government and a foreign state than she is to the country that we live in. And the biggest thing and the most consequential thing is the fact that he went to war with Iran now. He has brought us to war with Iran, full-on war. I don't care what they say, this is war. They'll call it a war when it's convenient for them, and then they'll say it's not a war when it's not convenient. But it is a war. Just like Venezuela was a war. If another country did what we did to Venezuela, we would consider it an act of war. If another country did to us what we did to Iran, we would consider that an act of war. So just because we do it, we're the ones doing it, doesn't all of a sudden make it not war. We're at war with Iran. And I know a lot of y'all have bought into these Fox News talking points that he's not starting a war, he's ending a 47-year war, and that's just total hogwash. They have not been at war with us for 47 years. We've actually been meddling over there for much longer than that, destabilizing that region for much longer than that. And from everything that I've seen, Iran has been very controlled. They've shown a lot of self-control. I would think that if I was running one of those countries over there, I probably would have gone crazy and gone AWOL or gone nuts on these people a long time ago. I always try to imagine being in other people's shoes. And I think that's a problem that a lot of people have, is that they can't put themselves in other people's shoes. And it allows them to dehumanize other groups of people, whether it's another race or another religion or whatever it is. You cannot put yourself in those people's shoes, so you start to hate them because of the things that they do instead of trying to understand why they do the things they do. And I think the world would be a lot better place if we could just learn to put ourselves in other people's shoes. Oh, it weighs heavy on me. I've told you that. I've been involved in this political game for about 17 years now. And I've always done it with the purest of intentions. I believe in limited government. I believe in freedom, personal individual liberty. And I've always acted on those principles. I ran for state representative twice, lost both times. And folks that knew me when I was younger, before I got into politics, would tell you that I used to be a lot happier person, much more of a people person. I actually am naturally a people person. I like to talk to people. I like to interact with people, and I like to make people happy. But I've also always had a very hard time with rejection. I have a fear of rejection, which is why one of the reasons why it took me so long to start doing these videos is because I have a natural fear of rejection. I hate, because I like people so much, I want people to like me too. And it's hard to deal with when you get rejected by your community, when you're rejected by your family and people around you that you care about and love. And it's not that they reject you because you're a bad person. It's that they reject you because you're, well, who knows what it is, too young, too inexperienced, too gung-ho, whatever it might be. And so I've turned into more of a cynic, more like a George Carlin type. I'm more black-pilled these days. And my only hope right now, as I can see it, is in Jesus. And so I'm just putting my faith in Him and trying to be obedient to Him and spread His message and try to apply it to the politics of our day. And I just want to try to spread that word to as many people as I can, whoever will listen to me. And I also want to leave a record for my posterity, for my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, to look back and say that somebody along in their line didn't just go along with things, that he was speaking up and speaking out and trying to stop the insanity of his day. And so I guess that's probably about all I want to say on this one. I will leave you with this request. I would ask you that if you got anything out of this video, just hit that like button. It's funny that I've gotten several messages and phone calls from people who've watched some of these videos I've done, and they tell me that they needed to hear the message, or they're glad that I did the message, but they didn't like the post. They didn't like the video. They didn't share the video, and I just would ask that if you get anything out of the video, please give me a like and give me a share. Let me know that somebody's out there watching, and maybe it'll keep me motivated to keep doing this. As always, it's everything I say is out of love, a love for the individuals, for individual liberty, individuals all over this world. And it's out of a true concern for my fellow man and for the future for our children and our grandchildren. Appreciate you watching. Y'all have a good evening. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.